Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and as you can see it's a bit colder outside today, so I've got the wood stove on in the garage today. It's cooled down quite a bit since last week. We had up to 26 degrees Celsius last week. That's really odd for this time of year, but now the weather seems to have gone back to what it should be. Anyways, today I want to welcome all my new subscribers again, and today's video number 94 for small engines questions and answers. And since some people have already gotten their lawnmowers out, some have been asking me what's the oil that you use in your lawnmowers. Well, this is what I use, Castrol HD30. It's an SAE30 oil. It's a lot thicker than 5W30 or 10W30. You don't necessarily have to use this brand, but any SAE30 oil will do. I really like that SAE30 oil because it stays nice and thick in the nice summer heat. And I've also noticed that most small engine manufacturers do recommend the SAE30 oil in the summertime. The next question I got from a YouTuber the other day is it necessary to have the small brass washer between the spring on the needle and the O-ring inside the nut here? Well, the answer to that is yes. It's really important to have it there because you can end up damaging the O-ring. And what I'll do now is just give you a close look under the camera. So in case you're wondering exactly what I'm talking about, it's the small little washer right here. As you can see, the spring goes on the needle, and then the washer goes, and then what you would do is put your rubber O-ring like this. This one's a bit worn out. Now I just mentioned that it's important because you can end up damaging the O-ring. Well, here's the reason why. If I take the little washer off, you can see there that there's nothing to protect the O-ring from the spring. There's a little sharp edge over here where the spring ends. Well, it's not that sharp, but it could work its way into the O-ring. And the O-ring may not go on as nice and tight as it should or flat. It may work for a while without the brass washer, but your rubber O-ring here is going to wear out prematurely. So always make sure it's on there when you rebuild your carburetor or take it apart. And again, this is the order of things: the spring, the washer, and the O-ring. But on the older Tecumseh carburetors with adjusting screws, obviously, like I just showed you, there's one under here, and there's also another one here for the air mixture screw. And here's the air mixture screw, and there is a brass washer over here too as well, and I'm not sure if this one comes in the kit. So if it is missing from the air mixture screw, do get a new one. And here's the screw. I just took it out and you can see that there is one. This one's in good shape, so I'll just put it back in. Anyways, it's always important to make sure that these little parts are always in your carburetor. And another thing you can do too is when you take apart old carburetors or you replace a carburetor kit on a carb, just take the screw out over here and save the little brass washer and the spring and everything if you want. Like that, you're going to have extras kicking around if ever you're missing one. If your washer is missing, you can always buy it separately, and this is the part number 630739. Now if you buy a complete repair kit for your carburetor, it does come with it. I got a question the other day from a YouTuber. He said he took the flywheel off his chainsaw and he cannot see a hole for the flywheel key to go in. Well, the reason for that is because a lot of the new chainsaws, the flywheel key is built right into it. And if you've sheared the key here from the flywheel, you basically have to buy another flywheel. So you're not going to be able to see a hole for a key if it's sheared. So the flywheel I'm talking about with the built-in keyway is one like this. As you can see, there's a hump here. It's built right in, and on the crankshaft of the chainsaw, there'll be a hole for this key to fit right in. So if your nut got loosed on the shaft and the flywheel kind of moved, or the chainsaw kicked a lot and it sheared the flywheel key here, you basically have to get another flywheel. Unlike the older ones like this, these ones here had a separate key that would go in, kind of like this. And if you broke the key, then you just had to replace the key, not the whole flywheel. I preferred the old method like this, but a lot of the bigger pro saws do still have a key in the flywheel. It's separate from the flywheel, just like this. But a lot of the smaller saws have a built-in key in flywheel. It's the same for a lot of grass trimmers and a lot of different engines as well nowadays. So if you're wondering where the key went, it might be just sheared off. I got a question the other day from a YouTuber telling me that his chainsaw is really hard to pull over. He's checked everything, the clutch, the chain, the pull cord, everything that he can think of, and it's still hard to pull over. What I have here today is an older Husky 50, and I'm just going to show you what can happen. This could sometimes be your problem. What I've seen happen sometimes is that the ignition module here will get loose like that, and when your engine's turning, the magnets tend to want to stick on the coil just like this, and you can hear it rub on there. And the reason for that, like I said, is that the magnets on the flywheel are touching the metal parts on the ignition module, and it's making it really hard to turn over. And also, if your flywheel is rubbing on the coil like this, you're probably not going to have any spark at your spark plug. So always check this. Sometimes they vibrate loose. If that's the case, then re-gap it. Usually I just use a business card. I insert it between the coil and the flywheel, let it drop, and then tighten up the bolts. You can always use the blue Loctite to make sure that your bolts do not get loose again and cause the same problem. And one thing to do right away is, if your engine's hard to turn over, is take the spark plug out and check for spark. If there's no spark, it's more than likely that the ignition module is rubbing on the flywheel. And if you've checked that, in addition to all the other things that you can think of, it could be something more serious inside the engine, like the bearings or the top end. The piston, cylinder, and rings may be scored or seized. You may want to take the muffler off and take a peek through the exhaust port to see what the condition of your piston and rings are. Now, about a week or two ago, I posted a video on how to examine chainsaw crankshaft bearings for wear. Well, since that video, I got a lot of questions in regards to crankshaft bearings for chainsaws. One of them was, are the crankshaft bearings a replaceable part? Well, the answer to that is yes, they are a replaceable part. Here's an old part from a Husky 45. Here's the crankshaft and the bearings. The bearing on this side is covered by a plastic part, but here's the bearing on the other side. This one has a bit of play in it. But yes, all you have to do is remove the bearing. You can use a 2-jaw puller and pull it out. And after you do that, you just get new bearings and push them back in. This bearing here from a Husky 45 I can get from Husqvarna, but let's say you had an old Homelite chainsaw and you could not order it from Homelite. Well, then you may want to match up the numbers on the bearing. These are the numbers you'd want to match over here, 6202. And there's more letters over here, and usually it will fit perfectly. You want to make sure that they're high-speed bearing and that they can take the high RPMs of a chainsaw. And another question I got in regards to crank bearings for chainsaws is, another guy asked me, are they expensive to replace? Well, just to buy the bearings, it's not expensive. And if you're going to do the repair yourself, it's not going to be too expensive, and you may even enjoy doing it at the same time. And if you're going to decide to replace the crank bearings, you might as well replace the crank seals as well, because you're going to have them off anyways to replace the bearings pretty well. So you have to take in consideration that little extra cost of the crank seals. They're not expensive anyways to buy as well, and they can make your saw run a lot better, especially if it's an older saw and they're leaking air. And since it's the end of the winter, I've been getting questions, what should I do to put away my snowblower for the summer? Well, I do have a video posted on YouTube. I'm going to put the link to that video underneath this one today so that you can go watch it, just to get a few reminders as to what to do to properly put your snowblower away for the season. It's pretty easy, just follow the video. Some of you guys already know what to do, but some others maybe are just new at small engines, and you're very welcome to go watch this video and get a few tips from that, and maybe share your comments or read the other people's comments so that you can benefit from their comments as well. So guys, that's about all the time I have for today. I got a lot of stuff to do, and I do appreciate as well as to how the comments that you guys post help the other watchers out there. It's a little community here, and we're all trying to help out each other. And if you put out some good constructive comments out there, everybody will appreciate that. So guys, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.